Welcome to WealthRise Stories, where clarity meets knowledge, and knowledge becomes financial power.
Welcome, everyone. We're down to a journey that doesn't just cross space, but cuts straight through time. Now do you see what I'm holding here? An old worn-out book so old that I swear, if I blew on it, an entire century of ideas and business principles might just swirl into the air. This isn't just any book. This is the Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, the very first volume in a 10-book series, originally published back in the early 20th century, right around 1909. Over 100 years ago. Setting the book on the table, gently flipping a page, paper rustling. More than a century has passed, and it makes me wonder, has everything you need to know about business already been written more than 100 years ago? Sounds ridiculous, right? We're living in an era of AI, blockchain, the metaverse, an era where billion-dollar unicorn startups seem to pop up overnight. Everything changes at breakneck speed, second by second. If you're not updating yourself daily, you risk getting left behind instantly. Algorithms, digital platforms, disruptive business models. All of it feels brand new, nothing like the world in which this book was created. And yet, let's pause for a moment. Let's set aside the frantic pace, the endless complexity of today's digital economy, and ask ourselves, are there principles, core truths of business that remain unchanged no matter how many decades pass? No matter how advanced technology becomes? Do the struggles that entrepreneurs faced in the late 1800s and early 1900s, from finance to staffing, from marketing to strategy, bear more resemblance to our current challenges than we realized? So I took this journey myself, flipping through pages yellowed by time, as if activating a time machine and transporting myself back to an era when business administration was still finding its shape. I wanted to know, amid the chaos of constant innovation, does a timeless framework still exist? A solid foundation that every business, old or new, ultimately depends on. And what I found hidden beneath the dust of the past were diamonds. Intellectual diamonds, fundamental business principles that in our rush to modernize, we may have accidentally overlooked. Concepts that feel like 21st century breakthroughs may have already been examined, debated, and articulated right here in these pages over 100 years ago. It's honestly astounding. This isn't just a historical artifact. It's a key. A door that takes us back in time, not to indulge nostalgia, but to find the seeds of truth and wisdom that may still be growing strong in today's economy. So, are you ready? Ready to uncover the intellectual diamonds hidden inside a work most people have forgotten? Ready to see how the early giants of commerce thought, worked, and shaped their world? And more importantly, whether their lessons can help us solve the problems we face today? Let's do this. Through each volume of this series, we'll activate the time machine known as the Cyclopedia of Commerce and unravel the secrets of business principles that simply refuse to fade away. And trust me, you're going to be surprised. Welcome back, and if this is the first time we're meeting through this screen, then hello, I'm WealthRise Stories, and I'm genuinely excited to have you here with me as we dive into something pretty fascinating in today's video. If you watched the previous episode, you probably remember I teased a rather unusual book, one that almost everyone reacts to the same way the first time they see it. Oh my gosh, what is this? This thing looks ancient. My story with Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, Verjacques, N01 of 10. Started a few years ago on a light, rainy afternoon inside a tiny second-hand bookstore tucked away on a quiet street. You know that smell, old paper, mixed with a hint of coffee drifting in from the cafe next door. The exact kind of vibe book lovers in the US always call cozy and nostalgic. And that kind of atmosphere has an irresistible pull on me. Amid the stacks of modern books with glossy covers and bright colors, My eyes suddenly landed on a secluded corner where a pile of dusty old books sat untouched. And there, lying still like a forgotten treasure, was this book. The leather cover felt cool to the touch. The pages had browned like old Polaroid photos. And the title, long enough to make anyone sigh, read its Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, Visor Eero 1 of 10. It was 2020, a time when everything was about AI breakthroughs, tech revolutions, unicorn startups, disruption, and an entire world obsessed with data algorithms and automation. Honestly, my initial reaction was a mix of skepticism and exhaustion. Seriously, a book from 1904. That's more than a century old. Who in the world still reads this stuff today? Business now has to be agile, innovative, rapid testing, data-driven, full of A/B tests. What could this relic possibly offer a YouTuber like me, or anyone trying to build a career in an era that moves at warp speed? It felt like one of those props from an Indiana Jones film, beautiful, sure, but usable. Probably not. That's exactly what I thought. But then, something nudged me. Maybe it was the instinct of a storyteller, maybe the quiet sense of dignity the book carried, or maybe I was just craving a perspective that wasn't trendy, recycled, or predictable. So I bought it. Without expecting much, basically thinking it would look good on my desk, make the setup seem a bit more intellectual, add some depth to my YouTube background. Then one sleepless night, when all the modern content ideas spinning in my head felt empty and pointless, I decided to open it at random, just one page, then another, then an entire chapter. And you know what, I was hooked. Not because it talked about cutting-edge tech or the groundbreaking business models of its time. Of course it didn't. But because behind the old-fashioned language, behind references to telegraph operators and steamships, I found something: principles. Foundational principles, surprisingly powerful ones, that still hold true today. Principles that somewhere in the rush of the 2020s we may have unintentionally forgotten or brushed aside as obvious without remembering why they matter. This isn't one of those dry as sand history lectures where you listen out of obligation and forget everything the next minute. No. This is a conversation, a journey I want you and me to take together. We're going to brush off the dust of time, not to stare at its oldness, but to uncover the diamond underneath. To see whether that brilliance can shape your startup idea, influence the work I'm doing, or help guide the decisions you're wrestling with every day. You might wonder, can a book from the early 20th century really teach us anything in the whirlwind of the 21st? And my answer is absolutely. Because some principles are like underground rivers, steady, unchanging, always flowing, no matter how wildly the world above shifts. They're not magic pills that solve everything, but they are a reliable compass. They help us see past the temporary trends so we can build something with real strength. This cyclopedia, even though it's only the first volume out of 10, lays down the fundamental foundations of commerce, accounting, and business administration. And in today's video, we're going to walk through its core chapters together. Think of this as a time travel experience, where we sit across from the business thinkers and entrepreneurs of the past, listening to how they built entire empires from scratch in a world with no internet, no computers, not even a cell phone. We'll explore the earliest definitions of commerce, contracts, currency, the very things we now take for granted. We'll look at how they kept their books, the roots of double-entry accounting, the kind of meticulous thinking and systematic logic that can illuminate how we build databases, manage projects, or optimize workflows today. And beyond that, we'll dig into early ideas on people management, marketing, reputation, and trust values that never go out of style. But hold on, I want to be clear. This journey isn't just numbers and frameworks. My style, you know this already, is always to humanize everything. Meaning, we won't just talk about assets or liabilities, but also try to understand the mindset of those old-world merchants, how they thought before investing in a ship or expanding into a new market. Because behind every accounting method, every business strategy, there's a story about human choices, ambition, mistakes, and triumphs. We're going to ask, why did they think that way? What shaped their decisions? And which of these principles still pulse with life in today's hyperspeed world? The goal isn't to imitate them, it's to understand how they thought. To tap into that meticulousness, that resilience, that long-term vision that our instant noodle society seems to be losing. So if you're curious, like I am, if you believe the past isn't just yellowed pages, but a treasure chest of wisdom and core values, then let's open this book together and start this conversation across centuries. I'm confident we'll discover far more than you expect. Ready then, let's begin. We're about to begin a pretty fascinating journey, almost like hitting a rewind button and traveling back to a book series, whose title alone already feels heavy-duty. Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration. Just hearing the name sounds dry, academic, textbookish, old school, right? I get it. I've been there. But trust me, inside these pages that look ancient are hidden gems about the true nature of business. Lessons that even in the age of TikTok, AI, and startups are still incredibly relevant and surprisingly valuable. And in today's episode, we're diving into Chapter 1. The nature of commerce, the exchange of value. Commerce. When you hear that word, most people instantly think of money, Wall Street tickers, thick contracts, or massive revenue numbers. But what if I told you that, at its deepest level, commerce isn't about money at all, but something far more fundamental? It's about the exchange of value and solving human problems. So let's forget the complicated numbers and jargon for a moment. For the next few minutes, let's reset our definition of commerce in a way that's simple, but far more accurate. 1. The classic definition. The flow of value. This cyclopedia, written in the early 1900s, defines commerce in a way that's surprisingly simple, yet incredibly powerful. They don't begin with profit or capital. They talk about the movement of goods, ideas, and services from where they are created to where they're needed to meet human wants. Listen closely. Goods, ideas, services. And the goal is to satisfy needs. They weren't talking about a single transaction. They were describing a flow. A continuous flow of valuable things moving from one person to another, from one place to another. Which also means, even before money existed, commerce already existed. It was part of human survival instinct. Picture this: thousands of years ago, one tribe has more meat than they can eat. Another has an excess of crops. They trade meat for grain, for animal skins. That is commerce. No banks, no contracts, no invoices, just value exchanged to solve real problems. 2. From a 19th century blacksmith to a 21st century programmer. The principle doesn't change. To understand this timeless principle, let's take a little time jump. Example 1. The 19th century blacksmith. Imagine you're a farmer in the late 1800s, somewhere in small-town America. Your plow breaks right in the middle of harvest season. This isn't a small inconvenience. Your family's meals depend on that plow. You can't fix it yourself. So you go to the blacksmith. The blacksmith has skills, tools, and iron. He creates value by repairing your plow, helping you get back to work. In return, you pay him maybe with a couple of chickens, a sack of grain, or some cash, depending on the era. Money, grain, or chickens, those are just the medium. The core is, you the farmer have a real urgent problem. The blacksmith has the solution. You exchange value and both sides benefit. No one walks in thinking, how do I squeeze the other person for as much money as possible? The original spirit was, I can help you, and in return, I receive what I need to keep living and working. Example 2. The 21st century programmer. Now fast forward to today. You run a small business, maybe in the US, maybe anywhere, and you've been managing inventory with manual Excel sheets. You're drowning in errors, wasted hours, and mysterious shortages. You can't build a full software system yourself, so what do? You hire a developer or a dev team. The programmer has coding skills, understands systems, knows how to build something that fits your operations. He creates value by building a clean, efficient inventory app for you. You pay him maybe a flat fee, maybe subscription-based. Did the principle change? Not at all. You have a clear, measurable problem. He has the solution. You exchange value. You get efficiency and peace of mind. He gets well-earned income. From a broken plow to inventory software, from a blacksmith to a programmer. The tools change, the context changes, but the essence of commerce stays the same. It's the exchange of value to solve a problem and satisfy a need. 3. Needs and wants, the eternal driving forces. So what drives all these value exchanges? What is the core engine of commerce? Human needs and wants. Needs, the essentials of life, food, water, shelter, clothing, safety, basic health. We can't survive without them. Commerce exists to help us get these things without having to create everything from scratch ourselves. Wants, the non-essentials that make life worth living: comfort, convenience, enjoyment, achievement, status. A better car, a beach vacation, the newest smartphone, an online course that helps you level up. Commerce exists to fill those gaps. A successful business identifies a need or want that isn't being met well and creates a solution to fill that space. The blacksmith met the need for farming tools. The programmer meets the need for operational efficiency. A restaurant meets the need for food and the want for a great experience. A YouTube channel like ours meets the want for learning, inspiration, and entertainment that still adds value. 4. Connecting to a modern concept, product-market fit. In the 21st century, the startup world uses a trendy term, product-market fit. Sounds technical, but it's really just a new label for a very old truth. Product-market fit simply means your product actually solves a real need or want for a group of people who are willing to pay for it. In other words, the value you create matters to the market, not just to you. If the blacksmith made tools nobody needed, no product-market fit. If the programmer built a flashy app that solves nothing, still no product-market fit. Product-market fit isn't some Silicon Valley invention. It's just a modern software update of the ancient core principle we've been discussing. Value exchanged to solve real problems and meet real needs. So that's the truth. Commerce at its heart isn't an overwhelming maze of charts, KPIs, and financial jargon. It's simply the foundation of human interaction. It's seeing a need, creating a solution, and receiving value in return. It's the ongoing process of making life better, removing friction, and creating prosperity. Not just for one party, but for both sides of the exchange. Whenever you look at any business, from a tiny street coffee cart to a multinational corporation, ask yourself, what problem are they solving? What value are they exchanging with their customers? And suddenly you'll see that behind every successful business model lies a story about value, about meeting a very real need or desire. This is just the warm-up in our journey to uncover the true nature of commerce. In the next chapter, we'll break down each element that creates this flow of value, and more importantly, how we can apply these timeless lessons to today's business world, where everything moves at lightning speed. Thank you for joining me for this first chapter. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the episodes ahead. See you in the next chapter. Welcome back to our journey through the Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration. A reference work that I believe is not just a technical manual, but a full-blown mental map for how we design and run the world of business. In the last chapter, we laid the foundation with the most basic concepts. And today, in Chapter 2, Forms of Business Organization. From solo to collective, we're going to dive into a topic that even after more than 100 years still holds its core truth: how we collaborate, share risk, and build our business dreams together. When I got to this part, I literally had to say out loud, wow, people back then really understood human nature and how society operates. They distilled business organization into 3 basic forms that even now are still the backbone of almost every modern economy: sole proprietorship, partnership, and corporation. Sounds academic, right? But trust me, you'll see how they connect directly to every freelancer, every startup, and all the giant corporations we see every single day. 1. Sole proprietorship, the courage and risk of the pioneer. Let's start with the most basic form: sole proprietorship. Imagine you're a skilled craftsperson, an independent artist, or a small business owner with a bold idea. You want to turn that idea into reality on your own terms, calling all the shots, owning every decision, and keeping all the rewards. That is the spirit of the sole proprietorship. In the Cyclopedia, they describe this as the simplest form to set up: no complicated legal structure, very little red tape. You're the boss, the employee, the accountant, the marketing department, everything rolled into one. The profits are yours, and every decision is in your hands. Sounds liberating and exciting, doesn't it? But along with that freedom comes a huge responsibility, what the book calls unlimited liability. What does that mean? It means that if your business runs into trouble or falls into debt, it's not just your business assets on the line. Your personal assets, your house, your car, your savings, can also be used to pay off what you owe. It demands a special kind of bravery, a true pioneer spirit that is willing to stand face to face with risk. I believe every freelancer, every small online seller, every independent coffee shop owner we see today is a modern sole proprietor. They're the ones stepping out of their comfort zone, betting everything on their belief and their abilities. This is where so many business dreams are born, where one person decides to write their own story. But it's also where loneliness and the full weight of risk can sit heavily on the owner's shoulders. 2. Partnership, the power and pitfalls of trust. When one person's dream grows too big, or when the burden of risk becomes too heavy, they start looking for partners. And that brings us to the second form, partnership. The book describes it as an agreement between 2 or more persons to carry on a business together for the purpose of sharing profits. The strength of a partnership lies in complementarity. One person is great at marketing, another has technical expertise. One brings capital, the other brings the big idea. When 2 or more people pool their resources, knowledge, and experience, the chances of success can increase significantly. The burden of risk is also spread out, at least emotionally. You're no longer walking the path alone. However, the Cyclopedia also doesn't shy away from warning us about the traps of this structure. Like sole proprietorships, partnerships often come with unlimited liability for the partners. In many cases, one partner can be held responsible for the actions of another, even if they weren't directly involved. This is what we call joint and several liability. It's a lot like a marriage trust is the most valuable asset. You've probably heard stories of startups launched by close friends that later fell apart because of internal conflict. That's the dark side of partnership. The book emphasizes just how important it is to have a clear and transparent agreement between partners, not just about profit sharing, but about how to handle disputes, how to divide responsibilities, and what happens when things go wrong. Because once trust is broken, it's not just the business that collapses, but often the personal relationships as well. The strength of a partnership is built on trust, and its downfall usually begins with the cracks in that very trust. 3. Corporation, a world-changing invention of limited liability. So here's the big question. How do you build a massive business empire, attract millions or even billions of dollars in capital, and still protect the personal assets of founders and investors? How do you create an organization that can outlive its founders, continuing long after any one individual is gone? That's where one of the greatest inventions in business history came in the corporation. The Cyclopedia dedicates a large portion to analyzing corporations, and I truly believe this is the chapter that changed the game. At the heart of the corporate model lies One key idea limited liability. Put simply, a corporation is treated as a separate legal person, distinct from the individuals who own it. That means if the company goes bankrupt, investors only lose the money they put into its stock, not everything they own personally. It's like having a shield. This concept opened the door to large-scale capital raising on a level the world had never seen before. Investors no longer had to fear losing their entire personal fortune when backing a risky venture. That made it possible for businesses to attempt giant, expensive projects, building transcontinental railroads, massive steel mills, and the industrial giants we associate with the age of the Industrial Revolution. They described the corporation as an entity with perpetual life, independent of any individual founder. Shareholders can come and go, but the company can keep operating. This structure also enables specialization in management boards of directors, CEOs, and functional departments, each with a clear role forming a highly efficient machine. I see this as one of the most important milestones in economic civilization. Because of the corporate structure, the world was able to develop complex technologies, build multinational enterprises, and create millions of jobs. It's a testament to human ingenuity in designing systems that go beyond individual limitations to achieve greater goals. 4. Connecting to today, from freelancers to global giants. Even though more than a century has passed since the Cyclopedia was compiled, these forms of business organization are still very much alive. Freelancers, independent artists, small online sellers. These are the sole proprietors of the 21st century, free and independent, but carrying the full weight of risk on their own shoulders. Tech boutiques, design studios, marketing agencies started by a group of friends or like-minded partners. These are the modern partnerships, where trust and collaboration are the keys to success. And then you have the tech giants like Apple, Google, Microsoft, along with global financial and manufacturing conglomerates. These are the inheritors and evolutions of the corporation model, with millions of shareholders, complex structures, and enormous capital-raising power. The core lesson is still the same: responsibility, risk, and collaboration. Whether you're a solo owner, a trusted partner, or part of a massive corporate machine, you need to understand where you stand in that structure, what level of responsibility you carry, what risks are attached to that role, and how you can collaborate to reach shared goals. This book teaches us that no matter how much technology changes, how volatile markets become, the essence of organizing people to create value still follows a few basic principles. The authors of the Cyclopedia weren't just writing about accounting or commerce. They were writing about the nature of ambition, risk, and human trust. In the next chapter, we'll go deeper into how these businesses are managed and operated on a day-to-day basis, even down to things that seem small or routine. Join me as we explore how these old-school principles still quietly shape the modern business world we live in today. Now we're stepping into a section that's just as important as everything we've covered so far. A solid pillar that supports every business transaction, whether it's tiny or worth millions. And that is Chapter 3, Contracts. The entrepreneur's eternal handshake. It sounds dry, legalistic, full of intimidating jargon, doesn't it? But trust me, behind all those clauses and technical terms lies the lifeblood of trust, the written form of a promise, the foundation of every long-lasting business relationship. A contract in its simplest form is the guarantee that your word and your partner's word will actually be honored. I have a friend named Hung. A few years back, he and another close friend, also a former co-worker, shared a dream of launching a small chain of specialty coffee shops. They were completely aligned, same passion, same vision, same drive. Everything at the beginning seemed perfect. They invested together, stayed up late, researching the market, tested beans, tweaked roasting profiles, you name it. But there was one thing they skipped: a clear written contract. Everything was based on verbal promises and friendly handshakes. Who owned what percentage? How would profits be split? What about branding rights? Who got the final say when decisions clashed? All of it was vague, based purely on we understand each other. But when the business hit its first real problems, when profits didn't match expectations, when opinions diverged on the company's direction, the conflicts began. There was no document to refer to, no terms to fall back on. And the trust between the two friends started cracking. In the end, the project failed. Not only did they lose their investment, but worse, they lost a friendship they had built over years. The price of ambiguity, of not having a clear contract, can be far higher than we ever imagine. But it was through painful lessons like that that I truly realized the irreplaceable value of a contract. A few years later, I had the chance to collaborate with another partner on a fairly large software development project. This time, I was determined to do it right. From day one, we sat down, spent weeks writing out every clause, every commitment. Scope of work, timeline, fees, confidentiality, risk management terms. If A happens, then B kicks in. What do we do if there's a dispute? Everything was clear and written out. And sure enough, halfway through the project, a major technical issue popped up, something no one could have predicted. It threatened to delay the entire schedule and drive up costs. Without a contract, it would have been endless arguments, finger-pointing, maybe even another failed partnership. But thanks to the pre-agreed terms on risk handling and each party's responsibility during force majeure situations, we knew exactly what each side needed to do and where the boundaries were. Everything got resolved quickly, the project was completed on time, and our professional relationship grew even stronger because of the transparency we'd established. You see, a document that looks dry and boring on the surface can actually save an entire business relationship. So what exactly turns a simple promise into a true contract, something legally binding and enforceable? The Cyclopedia breaks this down into core elements, and I'll explain them in the simplest way possible. 1. Offer and acceptance. One party must make a clear proposal, I want to buy this at this price, and the other party must fully accept it, I agree to sell at that price. Like two puzzle pieces clicking perfectly into place. 2. Consideration. There must be an exchange of value. Nobody gets something for nothing except in a special case like a gift contract. You give money, I give goods or services. That's the price each side pays to receive value from the other. 3. Intention to create legal relations. Both sides must genuinely intend to be legally bound, not just tossing around casual promises or friendly chit-chat. 4. Capacity. The people signing must have the legal ability to understand and make decisions. A 5-year-old or someone mentally incapacitated can't enter into a valid contract. 5. Legality. The content must be lawful. You can't sign a contract to buy illegal goods or perform illegal actions. That's it. Just like a recipe, miss one ingredient and the dish doesn't work. And here's something fascinating. From handwritten agreements sealed with wax and signatures 100 years ago to today's digital landscape, the form of contracts has evolved dramatically. Now we talk about smart contracts, digital contracts, built on blockchain. Think of it this way. Instead of ink on paper, a smart contract is code. When a condition is met, buyer has sent payment or the package has reached location X, the next clause automatically executes. Funds are released from escrow to the seller. It's like a high-tech vending machine. You put in money condition, the machine dispenses the product execution. But no matter how much the form changes from handwritten documents to blockchain automation, the essence remains the same. A contract is about commitment clarity and creating a roadmap for a transaction. And this is what I want you to remember most from this chapter. A contract is not created for lawsuits. Yes, it's legally binding. Yes, it's evidence when things go wrong. But that is not its main purpose. The real purpose of a contract is for both parties to understand each other clearly. It forces us to sit down and think carefully, anticipate risks, and talk through every possible scenario. It builds trust through transparency, through clear expectations, through agreed-upon protocols for when issues arise. A contract is a tool for solving problems before they happen, a guiding compass, not a cold legal weapon. So in every business transaction, whether tiny or massive, don't hesitate to request or draft clear written terms. That's not a sign of distrust. It's the ultimate sign of professionalism, mutual respect, and the desire to build something sustainable on the strongest foundation: clarity and commitment. Contracts. The entrepreneur's eternal handshake. I hope this chapter helped you understand the power and importance of this invisible but unbreakable bond of trust. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into another foundational pillar of business finance and accounting. Stay tuned. I'm your narrator and companion on this journey. And today, we're going to open a crucial chapter in the Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, a chapter I'd honestly call the heart, the pulse of all economic activity. Chapter 4. Buying and Selling. The heartbeat of commerce. If in the previous chapters we walked through foundational ideas like money value and organizational structures, then today we're stepping into the action, the moment where value is actually exchanged, where assets change hands, where demand finally meets supply. That moment is the transaction, the act of buying and selling. It sounds simple, but behind it lies a surprisingly sophisticated process, from negotiation, transfer of ownership and payment, all the way to deep lessons about fairness and transparency. 1. The classic sales process: touch, smell, and haggle. Let's rewind time to a bustling open-air market a few centuries ago, or even a few thousand years ago. Think of it as the original outdoor market long before supermarkets and shopping malls existed. Can you picture it? Dusty roads, loud voices calling out to customers, the smell of spices, earth sweat, all blending together into a very raw, very human kind of soundtrack. How did a transaction work back then? First comes the pitch. The seller lays out their goods in the most eye-catching way possible. Maybe it's shimmering silk jugs of rich wine or sacks of wheat piled high. No banner ads, no 4K product videos, no SEO-optimized product descriptions on a website. The goods have to speak for themselves to catch attention. Next comes inspection. This step is both crucial and deeply personal. The buyer doesn't just stand there and stare from a distance. They touch, smell, taste, sometimes even try things on the spot. You want to buy a knife. You pick it up, feel the weight, test the edge. You want fruit, you squeeze it lightly, smell the aroma to guess its ripeness. It's a full-on sensory experience, where quality control is done entirely through direct human perception. Once the buyer is satisfied, it's time to talk price. This is where the most familiar dance of old-school commerce begins: haggling. The seller names a price. The buyer counters with a lower one. Step by step, through persuasive words, eye contact, smiles, frowns, head shakes, shrugs, both sides inch toward a middle ground, a price they both feel is fair enough to shake on. It's not just math. It's communication psychology, and sometimes a little bit of performance. Finally, when everything is agreed upon, it's delivery and payment. Cash on the barrelhead, as Americans like to say. It might be gold or silver coins, or it might be barter, trading one good for another if money isn't widely used yet. Once the money or equivalent value changes hands, the goods officially change owners. The right to that item passes from seller to buyer, and that feeling of carrying something home that you've personally inspected, negotiated for, and won through haggling, that's a very special kind of satisfaction. 2. From caveat emptor to seller responsibility. This process sounds direct and fairly transparent, but there was an invisible rule that governed most transactions in those days: caveat emptor. Latin for let the buyer beware. In the old world, information was hard to come by. You buy a horse and a few days later you find out it's lame. That's on you. You buy a sack of grain and later discover mold inside. Again, your problem for not checking closely enough. Once the deal was done, once the money was paid and goods handed over, the seller usually had no further responsibility. Trust rested mostly on the seller's personal reputation in a small community and on the buyer's ability to protect themselves. But as commerce expanded beyond villages, beyond cities, beyond national borders, as deals became larger and more complex, this principle started to show its dark side. The reason is simple: trust became an incredibly valuable asset. A seller who wanted repeat customers and long-term success, who wanted a strong reputation, couldn't just hide behind, "You bought it, you deal with it." Gradually, we see a shift toward more responsibility on the seller's side. Ideas like warranties, quality guarantees, and return policies began to appear. Consumer protection laws were written. Sellers today are often required to make sure their products meet minimum standards and can be held liable if their products don't match what was advertised or have serious defects. This is a major step forward, reflecting the maturity of the commercial system, where fairness and transparency are not just ethical ideals, but necessary infrastructure for a healthy, sustainable market. 3. Connecting it to modern online sales from cart to return policy. Now let's jump straight to the 21st century, to you sitting there, watching this on your phone, laptop, or TV. The buying and selling process has changed so drastically that if you described it to a merchant from centuries ago, they'd probably think it was magic. And yet at its core, it's still the heartbeat of commerce. From noisy market stalls to glowing screens, we've moved from touch, smell, haggle to search, click, pay. You want to buy something online? The basic process looks like this. First, you search for a product on a massive e-commerce platform. Millions of items pop up with high-res images, detailed descriptions, demo videos, and most importantly, customer reviews. You can't physically touch the product, but you can touch the experiences of hundreds or even thousands of previous buyers through ratings and reviews. Next, you add items to your cart. This is the digital version of tossing things into a shopping cart at the store. See something you like. One click and it's sitting in your cart. Not sure yet. Leave it there, come back later. Everything is flexible. Then comes payment. No more counting out bills or haggling face to face. You enter your card info, use a digital wallet, or pick another payment option. The system processes it almost instantly, and you get an email or notification confirming your order. Legally and system-wise, ownership starts to shift, even though the product may still be in a warehouse or on a delivery truck. Then comes delivery. A few days later, or a few hours, if you're using same-day shipping, a delivery driver shows up at your door. That's the final physical step in the transaction. But the story doesn't end there. The biggest difference from the caveat emptor era, and the clearest sign of how responsibility has shifted, is the return policy. Many platforms now let you return or exchange items within 7, 14, even 30 days sometimes, simply because you didn't like it, not because it was broken. That sends a very clear message. Modern commercial systems place significant responsibility on sellers and platforms while elevating buyer protection to a whole new level. Trust is no longer optional. It's the standard. 4. The lesson-building reputation. Through every single transaction. Whether we're talking about an ancient bazaar or a billion-dollar e-commerce platform, the most important lesson about buying and selling still revolves around one word: reputation. For sellers in the past, reputation was built one delivery at a time, by showing up, delivering what they promised, and honoring their word. A merchant known as a cheat would quickly be avoided by the community. But an honest merchant who kept their promises would earn regular customers and word-of-mouth referrals, the most powerful form of marketing before the internet existed. Today, reputation is not only crucial, it's also measurable and publicly visible. Every online transaction doesn't really end when the payment goes through and the item arrives. It ends when the buyer leaves a rating and review. 1 star or 5 stars, a glowing comment or a brutal complaint, all of it becomes part of a seller's digital track record. You might think you're just selling a $10 pen, but if your description is misleading, your packing is sloppy, or your customer service is rude, that buyer can leave a very honest review. And that one review can make future buyers pause or go straight to a competitor. On the flip side, a small transaction handled with care, delivered on time as described with respectful communication, builds trust. It opens the door for repeat business and recommendations. This gives us a very clear lesson. Whether you're a giant corporation or a solo seller shipping from your bedroom, every single transaction is a chance to build or destroy your reputation. Fairness, transparency, and accountability aren't just moral values. They're survival strategies in a world where information spreads at the speed of a click. So there you have it. From bargaining under the hot sun in an open-air market to tapping a Buy Now button in the middle of the night, buying and selling has always been the center, the heartbeat of commerce. It's more than just exchanging physical goods. It's an exchange of trust. It's how we build relationships. And it's a mirror reflecting how our standards of business ethics evolve over time. Thank you for staying with me through this chapter. I hope this gave you a fresh perspective on something that looks simple on the surface, but is actually deeply profound in our economic lives. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming chapters. See you in the next one. Welcome back to the channel. I'm your narrator, and today we continue our journey through the massive Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, a classic gem from the early 20th century. And I truly believe that even though 100 years have passed, the core principles of business haven't lost a bit of their weight. What's changed is simply how we apply them today in the world of startups, technology, and a global economy that never sleeps. And today we're diving into one of the most important chapters, one whose title alone paints a vivid and powerful image. Chapter 5. Money and Credit, the lifeblood of business. Sounds dramatic, right? But in reality, it's one of the clearest, most accurate ways to describe the role of money and credit in every business operation. A business is a living organism, the bloodstream of money. Imagine your business as a living organism, an actual body that needs nourishment, movement, and growth every single day. So what is flowing through its veins, carrying nutrients and oxygen to every cell and every limb blood? In the same way, money cash is the bloodstream of a business. It's not just random digits on a spreadsheet or a cold balance in your bank account. Money is the medium for every operational action. You use it to buy materials, pay employees, cover rent, utilities, internet, invest in equipment and new technology, and ultimately generate returns for owners and investors. When this bloodstream flows smoothly, strongly, and under control, the business is healthy. Every organ, marketing, sales, operations, HR gets what it needs to function well. Employees stay motivated, suppliers are confident, customers are served properly, and the company is ready to seize opportunities the moment they appear. But when that bloodstream clogs, runs low, or leaks out faster than it flows in the business, weakens, and enters a critical state, that's when liquidity problems show up. Missed payments, delayed plans, or golden opportunities slipping away simply because the cash isn't there. See, it's not an exaggeration at all to call money the lifeblood of a business. It is a matter of survival, not a nice-to-have financial accessory. Capital and credit, where the blood comes from. So, where does this bloodstream come from? There are two main sources we need to distinguish clearly: capital and credit. Capital. Capital owner's equity is like the natural blood your body is born with. It's the money you put into the business, plus accumulated profits you choose to reinvest. Capital is the foundation, the root, the core of financial strength. It provides independent safety and a platform for sustainable growth. A company with strong internal capital is more resilient to market shocks, just like a healthy person is less likely to collapse from a minor illness. Credit. Credit is different. Credit is like receiving a blood transfusion or taking a booster shot when you need a burst of strength. It is money borrowed from banks, investors, bondholders, or even suppliers through buy now, pay later arrangements. Credit is not your money. It's temporary fuel you're allowed to use as long as you pay it back, usually with interest or certain commitments. So when should you use capital, and when should you use credit? Capital should be used to build a strong foundation, buying initial fixed assets, covering early-stage operating costs, or helping the business stay afloat during tough economic periods. Credit is a powerful lever, but a risky one. Credit should be used when you clearly see an opportunity, a high ROI project, a new market worth expanding into a deeply discounted inventory batch, or a technology upgrade that will boost productivity and reduce costs. Credit can also help smooth short-term cash flow gaps while waiting for receivables to come in. But the key thing to remember is this: credit is not free money. Its power comes with responsibility and risk. Use it wisely and it accelerates growth. Use it recklessly and it suffocates your business with debt. A simple parable. The two farmers. To make this clearer, let me tell you a simple parable about two farmers. In a small village, two farmers, A and B, live next to each other. Both own fertile land and both work hard. Farmer A is extremely cautious. He only spends the cash he already has to buy seeds, fertilizer, tools. He plants tens, harvests, sells, and prepares for the next season. He almost never borrows because he's terrified of debt. His land is always well kept, his harvest stable, and his family lives comfortably. But over the years, nothing really changes. No big jump, no expansion. Farmer B thinks a bit differently. He's hardworking too, but has longer-term vision. One year, he notices the plot next door is for sale at a great price. He knows that if he buys it, his yield will increase dramatically. But he doesn't have enough cash. So after carefully calculating potential yields, costs, selling prices, and weather risks, he decides to borrow money from a neighbor at a reasonable interest rate. He uses the loan to buy the land and invest in better seeds and fertilizer. That season, with more land and better inputs, Farmer B harvests double or even triple his usual amount. After selling, he pays back the loan plus interest and still has a healthy profit left over. He uses that surplus to both improve his family's lifestyle and reinvest in even more upgrades. Years pass. Farmer A's land stays stable, safe, respectable, but unchanged. Farmer B gradually owns 2-3 times more land and becomes one of the most successful farmers in the village. This story isn't about who's right or wrong. Farmer A chose safety and slow growth. Farmer B accepted calculated risk and used credit as a strategic tool. Credit helped him accelerate, but only because he planned carefully and controlled his risks. If he'd borrowed blindly or had a disastrous season, the story could have ended in crushing debt. Connecting to today, burn rate and cash flow management. Now let's come back to the 21st century, the age of tech startups, fundraising, fast growth, and scaling. The principles of money and credit haven't changed. They've just been dressed in new buzzwords. That idea of blood flowing out too fast, which I mentioned earlier, is what today's startup world calls the burn rate. Especially in Silicon Valley, burn rate refers to how fast a company is burning cash each month. If burn rate is too high and revenue or funding can't keep up, the business quickly runs out of blood, just like a body suffering massive blood loss and faces financial cardiac arrest. To control burn rate and keep the bloodstream healthy, we have cash flow management. Cash flow management is both an art and a science. It means monitoring every inflow and outflow, revenue, operating costs, debt payments, new investments. It requires disciplined budgeting, carefully negotiating payment terms with suppliers, optimizing inventory, and maintaining a reserve big enough to survive tough periods. Good cash flow management is like constantly measuring the blood pressure and heartbeat of your business, always knowing when to conserve energy and when to accelerate. When internal cash isn't enough to fuel big leaps, businesses look for external blood transfusions, funding rounds, seed series ABC. This is how companies raise money from investors to strengthen their financial health, expand operations, capture market share, invest in R&D, or scale up. Each round is essentially a legal contract, whether it's equity or convertible debt, and requires transparency strategy and disciplined use of capital. Timeless wisdom. Even though this book was written over a century ago, its principles on money and credit are still the guiding compass for every entrepreneur and manager today. Money is the essential medium of exchange, the bloodstream that keeps the business alive. Credit is the powerful lever that helps you accelerate, but always a double-edged sword. Use it wisely, and your business grows strong and agile, ready to seize opportunity. Misuse it, and it becomes the weight that drags everything down. Always remember, money and credit aren't just dry financial tools. They are the pulse of your business, what determines whether it thrives, struggles, or collapses. In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into accounting and how to track these financial flows accurately and in detail. Don't miss it. You probably frowned a little when you heard Chapter 6, Early Accounting, the Language of Truth. Maybe even sighed. Accounting sounds dry, right? Just numbers and paperwork. I get that feeling. There were times I used to think the same thing. But I promise you this, if we look at it the right way, accounting isn't just a subject. It's a language. The language of truth. The language that tells the story of the health and heartbeat of any business. It's not just a pile of complicated rules. It's a toolkit for understanding what's really going on underneath the surface. And in this chapter, we're going to humanize it, turning lifeless numbers into the whispers of profit, the roar of loss, and the clearest possible voice of reality. Let's strip away the dry outer shell and find the living, beating heart of accounting. The double-entry ledger, when truth speaks up. Just imagine this for a second. Hundreds of years ago, when trade was booming and sailing ships loaded with goods were crossing oceans, how did people know whether they were actually making money or losing it? How did they keep from losing track of their assets? How did they control cash flow or know who they owed money to and who owed money to them? That was a serious problem, big enough to give any merchant a headache. Then came a breakthrough, a great invention that most people don't fully appreciate, the double-entry bookkeeping system. Some people have compared its impact to the wheel or the steam engine when it comes to shaping the economy and human civilization. To me, it's like we discovered a way to have a conversation with the truth. The principle behind it is surprisingly simple. Every financial transaction, whether buying or selling, receiving or paying out, is recorded in at least two places. And the total amount of debits and credits must always be equal. Sounds intimidating with all the technical terms. In reality, it's just the principle of give and receive. If you receive something, you have to give up something of equivalent value or commit to giving it up later. It's like a mirror reflecting all of your financial activity in a balanced, fair way. If the two sides don't match, if total debits don't equal total credits, you instantly know something's off. Maybe it's a recording error. Or worse, maybe it's a loss or leakage you shouldn't be ignoring. It doesn't let you lie to yourself. It doesn't let you skip over the small stuff. And that's why I call it a tool for talking to the truth. It's the solid foundation of all modern accounting systems, the mechanism that enforces transparency and accountability. The three pillars of financial truth: sets liabilities and equity. To make this easier to picture, let's drop by a small neighborhood convenience store, let's say Ms. Land's shop on the corner. A tiny, familiar business, but one that contains the entire essence of accounting. First, we have assets. What does Ms. Land own? She has cash in the register. She has inventory stacked on the shelves, and in the back, instant noodles, milk cookies, snacks, drinks. She has a refrigerator to display cold products, a checkout counter, a lighted sign, and maybe even a motorbike she uses to deliver to regular customers. All of those things, everything the store owns that has economic value and can generate future benefits, are assets. They're things Ms. Lan can use or convert into cash. Second, we have liabilities. Does Ms. Lan owe anyone anything? Of course. She just brought in a big shipment from a distributor and hasn't paid for it yet. That's a payable owed to the supplier. She may also have taken out a small bank loan to renovate the shop or buy equipment. These financial obligations, money the store must pay to others in the future, whether in cash or services, are liabilities. They're the financial weights Ms. Lan has to carry. And finally, just as important, we have owner's equity. So what truly belongs to Ms. Lan, after we account for everything she owes? That's what's left when you take total assets minus total liabilities. It's the initial investment she put into the store plus retained profits minus any accumulated losses. Put into the simplest form: assets, liabilities, plus owner's equity. This is the basic accounting equation, the heartbeat of every balance sheet. It's not just a math formula. It's a financial story told in its most condensed form. These numbers are more than numbers. They tell a story. How much cash does Miss Lan's store have? What does her inventory look like? Who does she owe and how much? And most importantly, what is the real value of her store after everything is paid off? It shows her how healthy the business is and whether it's strong enough to face challenges. It's a snapshot of the company's financial condition at a specific point in time, clear and undeniable. Accounting, a core skill for every business owner. And here is what I want you to etch into your mind. Accounting is not a job reserved only for accountants, those people hunched over invoices, ledgers, and complex calculations all day. No. It's a common language that every business owner, every manager, and frankly, anyone who wants to understand money and business needs to speak. If you're the owner, you need to understand the financial health of your baby. You need to know where your money is, how much is flowing in, and how much is flowing out. You should look at your balance sheet and understand whether your business is fit and strong or weak and undernourished. You should read your income statement and know whether you're making a profit or taking a loss. And more importantly, why. It's like reading your own blood test results. You don't have to be a doctor to know what high cholesterol means or why dangerously high blood sugar is a problem, right? In the same way, you don't have to be a professional accountant to understand what your balance sheet and income statement are telling you about your business. Basic accounting gives you those vital signs. Mastering this basic accounting means mastering the power of control, the power to make smart decisions. It helps you set realistic financial goals, spot issues early, and take advantage of opportunities. It's the compass that guides you through the maze of business, making sure your ship stays on course and eventually reaches the harbor of success. From old school ledgers to the cloud, back to our cyclopedia for a moment. Try to picture the old days when every transaction was written by hand into thick, leather-bound ledgers, ink and paper, and painstaking detail. It was an art demanding patience, precision, and a steady hand. Those books were treasure chests storing the entire financial history of a business empire. One miswritten number could have serious consequences, and sometimes finding a single error could take weeks or months. Now look at how far we've come. From those heavy ledgers, we've moved to cloud-based accounting software, QuickBooks Xero and other platforms, plus local systems depending on your country, have turned accounting from a time-consuming burden into something fast, visual, and user-friendly. With just a few clicks, everything is automated. Electronic invoices are generated and sent in seconds. Bank accounts sync directly, transactions are matched automatically. Financial reports, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement are generated instantly with high accuracy. You can access your financial data from anywhere, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection. From your smartphone, you can check how much cash is in the account and how much you sold today, just like peeking into Ms. Lan's store in real time. The tools have changed. We've moved from human handwriting to artificial intelligence. But the core principle, the spirit of double-entry bookkeeping, the spirit of speaking with the truth, is still exactly the same. If anything, technology has amplified it, making accounting more powerful and more accessible than ever. It has democratized accounting, putting a sharp professional tool into the hands of every business owner, not just big corporations or specialists. So yes, accounting is not a pile of lifeless numbers. It's the heartbeat of your business. It's the story of your wins and your struggles told in a language you can absolutely learn to read. It's the map guiding you through the financial maze, the compass keeping you aligned with reality. I hope that after Chapter 6, accounting feels a lot less scary and a lot more interesting. Get ready, because in the next chapter we're going to dive deeper into the actual financial statements, where these stories are told in their most detailed form. You probably frown a little, maybe even sigh when you hear the title Chapter 6, Basic Accounting, the Language of Truth. Accounting. It sounds dry, right? Just numbers and paperwork everywhere. I get that feeling. Honestly, I used to think the same way. But I can promise you this, if we look at it the right way, accounting isn't just a subject, it's a language. The language of truth. The language that tells the story of the health and heartbeat of any business. It's not just a pile of complicated rules. It's a toolkit to help you truly understand what's going on beneath the surface. And in this chapter, we're going to humanize it, turning lifeless numbers into the soft whispers of profit, the roar of loss, and the clearest voice of truth. Let's peel off that dry outer shell and find the living heart of accounting together. The double-entry ledger. When truth speaks up, just imagine this. Hundreds of years ago, when commerce began to explode, when sailing ships loaded with goods were crossing the oceans, how did people know whether they were making a profit or a loss? How did they prevent assets from slipping through the cracks, keep track of cash flow, or even know who they owed and who owed them? That was a tough problem, big enough to give any merchant a serious headache. Then, a great invention appeared, one that doesn't always get the respect it deserves: the double-entry ledger. Double-entry bookkeeping. People have compared its impact to the wheel or the steam engine in terms of how much it shaped the economy and human civilization. To me, it's like we discovered a way to talk directly to the truth. The core principle is surprisingly simple. Every financial transaction, whether buying or selling, receiving or paying, is recorded in at least two places, and the total amount of debits and credits must always be equal. Sounds complicated with all the technical terms. In reality, it's just the basic principle of give and receive. If you receive something, you have to give up something of equivalent value or promise that you will. It works like a mirror, reflecting all of your financial activity in a balanced, fair way. If the two sides don't match, if total debits don't equal total credits, you know instantly that something's wrong. Maybe it's a simple recording error. Or worse, maybe it's a loss or leak that shouldn't be there. It doesn't let you lie to yourself. It doesn't let you ignore even the smallest detail. And that's why I call it a tool for talking to the truth. It's the solid foundation under every modern accounting system, the structure that makes transparency and accountability possible. The three pillars of financial truth: assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. To make this even easier to visualize, let's drop by a small corner convenience store, Ms. Land's shop. A tiny, familiar business, but one that contains the full essence of accounting. First, we have assets. What does Ms. Land own? She has cash in the register. She has shelves and storage full of goods, instant noodles, milk, cookies, snacks, soft drinks. She has a refrigerator to display chilled items, a checkout counter, a bright storefront sign, and maybe even a scooter she uses to deliver to regular customers. All of those things, everything the store owns that has economic value and can produce future benefits, are assets. They're things Ms. Land can use or turn into cash. Second, we have liabilities. Does Ms. Land owe anyone? Of course she does. She just brought in a big shipment from a distributor and hasn't paid yet. That's a debt owed to a supplier. She may also have taken out a small bank loan to renovate the store or buy more equipment. Those obligations, money the store must pay to others in the future, whether in cash or services, are liabilities. They're the financial burdens Ms. Land carries. And finally, just as important, we have owner's equity. So what truly belongs to Ms. Land? What is hers after all? Debts are accounted for. That's the amount left when you take total assets minus total liabilities. It's the initial investment she put into the store plus retained earnings minus any accumulated losses. In the simplest form, assets, liabilities, plus owner's equity. This is the basic accounting equation, the heart of every balance sheet. It's not just a math formula. It's a financial story told in its most condensed form. These numbers are more than just numbers. They tell a story. How much cash does Miss Land's store have? What does her inventory situation look like? Who does she owe, and how much? And most importantly, what is the real value of the store after all obligations are paid? It tells her how healthy the business really is, whether it's strong enough to face challenges. It's a snapshot of the company's financial condition at a specific moment, clear and undeniable. Accounting, a core skill for every business owner. Here's what I want you to carve into your memory. Accounting is not a job reserved only for accountants, the folks buried in invoices, ledgers, and complex calculations all day. No. It's a common language that every business owner, every manager, and really anyone who wants to understand money and business needs to be able to read. If you're an owner, you have to understand the financial health of your baby. You need to know where your money is, how much is coming in, and how much is going out. You should be able to look at a balance sheet and recognize whether your business is fit and strong or weak and undernourished. You should be able to read an income statement and know whether you're making a profit or taking a loss, and more importantly, why. It's just like reading your own blood test results. You don't have to be a doctor to know what high cholesterol means or why a dangerously high blood sugar level is a red flag, right? In the same way, you don't have to be a professional accountant to understand what your balance sheet and income statement say about your business. Basic accounting gives you those vital signs. Mastering basic accounting means mastering the power of control, the power to make smart, informed decisions. It helps you set realistic financial goals, spot problems early, and seize opportunities. It's the compass that guides you through the maze of business, making sure your ship stays on course and reaches its destination. From old school ledgers to the cloud, back to our cyclopedia for a moment. Picture the old days when every single transaction was carefully written by hand in thick, leather-bound ledgers, ink, and heavy paper line after line. It was an art form demanding patience, precision, and a very steady hand. Those books were treasure vaults, holding the financial history of an entire business empire. One wrong digit could cause serious trouble, and tracking down a mistake could take weeks or even months. Now look at how far we've come. From those heavy ledgers, we've moved to cloud-based accounting software. QuickBooks Zero, FreshBooks Wave. These tools have transformed accounting from a heavy time-consuming chore into something fast, visual, and accessible. With just a few clicks, everything is automated. Electronic invoices are created and sent in seconds. Bank accounts sync directly, and transactions are auto-matched. Financial reports, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow statement are generated almost instantly with a high level of accuracy. You can access your financial data from anywhere, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection. From your smartphone, you can check how much cash is in the account and how much Miss Land's shop sold today. The tools have changed from human handwriting to algorithms and AI. But the underlying principle, the spirit of the double-entry ledger, the spirit of speaking with the truth, remains exactly the same. In fact, technology has amplified it, making accounting more powerful and more accessible than ever. It's democratized accounting, turning it into a sharp, practical tool in the hands of every business owner, not just big corporations or specialized professionals. So no, accounting is not a pile of soulless numbers. It's the heartbeat of the business. It's the story of success and struggle told in a language you can absolutely learn to understand. It's the map that guides you through the financial maze, the compass that keeps you grounded in reality. I hope that after this Chapter 6 accounting feels a lot less scary and a lot more interesting. Get ready, because in the next chapter, we're going to dive deeper into specific financial statements where these stories are told in their most detailed form. We're now in Chapter 7, a chapter that might sound a little dry at first, but I promise you, it's packed with hidden gems that can completely change the way we work and the way we organize our lives. The title is Office Management, the Invisible Machine. Sounds big and serious, right? Office management. Everyone thinks they know what that means. But we're not just going to talk about arranging paperwork or buying office supplies. We're going to dive into the art of organizing work, managing records, and creating an efficient working environment, even if all you have is a desk, a pen, and your own brain. Think of it as designing an invisible machine that keeps everything running smoothly, even though you never actually see it standing in front of you. Section 1. Looking back. A typical office in the early 1900s. Let's travel back in time to the early 20th century. What did a typical office look like back then? There were no bright LED monitors, no constant clacking of laptop keyboards. So what would we see? We'd see heavy oak roll-top desks packed with drawers and hidden compartments. Yellowish light from incandescent bulbs hanging from high ceilings. The loud clack of mechanical typewriters. The smell of old paper mixed with fresh ink. Tall bookcases filled with thick, leather-bound ledgers. And right in the middle of it all, dark wooden filing cabinets with hundreds, even thousands of narrow drawers, each one stuffed with papers, receipts, letters, and documents. In that office, employees, often men in proper suits and women in modest professional dresses, are fully absorbed in their work. Secretaries are typing long letters on typewriters, copying out accounting entries by hand into big ledgers. Someone else is carefully sorting stamping and filing records. Every transaction, every piece of information is recorded manually. Now think about their workflow. A letter arrives. It has to be opened, read, classified, date stamped, and then forwarded to the right person. That person drafts a reply, sends it to a secretary to type reviews, it signs it, and finally it gets mailed out. Copies of both the incoming and outgoing letters are filed carefully in the appropriate drawers. There's no Ctrl+S. No automatic email archiving. Everything depends on process structure and an incredible attention to detail. One small mistake, and you could spend hours or days trying to track down a missing document in a sea of paper. It was a real nightmare when things got lost. Section 2. Timeless principles. Order process and filing systems. So from that old-school office scene, what golden rules did the book distill? I'd sum it up into 3 main pillars: orderliness, systematization, and filing. 2.1. Orderliness. Orderliness is the foundation of all efficiency. The book emphasizes that being organized isn't just about having a clean-looking desk. It's also a mental state. When everything has a place, when you're not surrounded by piles of random papers, you save an incredible amount of time searching for things. More than that, a tidy workspace helps your mind feel tidy too. You focus better, get distracted less, and make clearer decisions. Think about it. If you waste 5 minutes a day just looking for a pen or a file, how much time is that? Over a week, a month, a year. And that's not even counting the frustration and stress that clutter brings. Being organized is an investment in your own peace of mind and productivity. 2.2. Systematization, standardization. This is where we talk about turning everything into that invisible machine. Systematization means clearly defining the steps needed to complete a task. From opening mail, answering the phone logging records, to processing invoices, every task has a standard way of being done. Why does this matter? Efficiency. Clear processes make work faster and reduce mistakes. Consistency. Everyone does things the same way, so the quality of output stays consistent. Easy training. New employees can learn quickly by following the existing process. Less dependence on individuals. You don't always need the one person who knows how to do it to get something done. In the early 1900s, this meant writing detailed manuals and standardizing forms for every type of document. Every step was documented, from use blue ink for the date to stamp the top right corner in red. It might sound rigid, but that rigidity created efficiency and reliability. 2.3. Filing system. If systematization is the brain, then the filing system is the memory of the office. This is where all information is stored in an orderly way, so you can find it later. The book goes into great detail about common filing systems of that time. Alphabetical systems for client or company names. Numerical systems for contracts or orders with assigned numbers. Topical, subject-based systems for files organized by topics, projects, or departments. Chronological systems for letters, receipts, and documents organized by date. The key point isn't which system is best, but that you have a system and you stick to it. Every document needs a home, and when you need it, you should know exactly where to look. That requires patience, attention to detail, and most importantly, a systems thinking mindset. Section 3. Bridging to today. From paper to digital. At this point, you might be thinking, all this sounds kind of outdated. Who still keeps everything in wooden file cabinets? And you'd be right, the tools have changed. But the principles, they're still just as relevant, maybe even more, in a digital world. Look at the modern project management tools we use every day. Trello, Asana, Notion. How different are they really from the principles we just talked about? Orderliness. A well-organized Trello board with to-do, doing, done columns and color-coded cards is basically a digital version of a clean, structured workspace. It helps you visualize work, prioritize tasks, and avoid mental overload. Similarly, a well-structured project in Asana or a smartly designed Notion workspace with clear nested pages and databases is exactly how we create order in digital space. Systematization. Notion templates let you create standardized processes for everything from onboarding new employees, planning YouTube content, to managing personal projects. Asana helps you define tasks, subtasks, deadlines, and owners forming a consistent workflow. Trello checklists inside each card. That's a simple, powerful way to encode repeatable processes. Instead of writing instructions in a physical handbook, we now code our processes into software. Filing systems. This is where the parallel is almost one-to-one. Instead of dark wooden cabinets, we have massive digital databases in Notion, attachments in Asana, and linked documents in Trello. We still organize by topic Slack channels, Google Drive folders, by time version, history timestamps, by project spaces in Asana. Searching for a specific piece of information in Notion using a powerful search bar or finding a task in Asana is just the upgraded version of rummaging through a filing cabinet, only way faster and more accurate. When I first read about those manual filing systems in the book, I was honestly impressed. People back then had to think very carefully about how to design systems that worked smoothly in a world with absolutely no technology. And today, those same thought patterns still matter. We're just lucky enough to have tools that make implementation much easier. Section 4. Big lessons from small things. Optimizing your own invisible machine. So what's the biggest takeaway from Chapter 7, Office Management? The invisible machine. It's this: optimizing the little things can create massive efficiency. Never underestimate the power of organization. Whether you're a student trying to keep your study materials in order, a freelancer juggling multiple clients, or an executive running a large organization, the same principles apply. Start with your desk. Even if you work mostly on a computer, a clean physical space clears your mind. Everything should have a home. Systematize repetitive tasks. Do you answer the same kinds of emails over and over? Create templates. Do you forget steps when starting a new project? Turn it into a checklist. Build your own filing system. Whether it's on Google Drive, in Notion, or just folders on your laptop, spend time designing a logical structure. Clear file names, logical subfolders, and don't be afraid to do regular cleanups. When you optimize these seemingly small details, you're building your own invisible machine. A quiet, smooth-running system operating in the background, freeing up your brain so you can focus on what really matters rather than wasting energy hunting, sorting, or fixing mistakes caused by the chaos. I remember once spending nearly an entire morning just trying to find an old image file on my hard drive. Later, I realized that if I had just named the file clearly and saved it in a well-structured folder from the start, I could have saved myself all that time and frustration. That was a very real, very personal lesson on the value of good filing. It's thanks to these basic principles that early 20th century offices, despite being completely manual, could still run efficiently. And it's thanks to those same principles that we today, with far more powerful tools, can reach levels of productivity they could only dream of. So, Chapter 7, Office Management. The invisible machine isn't just a historical look at how old offices worked. It's a reminder that the foundation of all efficiency lies in organization, systematization, and a disciplined way of structuring our work. Don't let the complexity of modern technology distract you from the timeless basics that have worked for over a century. And maybe ask yourself, how well is my invisible machine running right now? Does it need a tune-up, a little oil, a bit of re-engineering? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're ready for another fun trip back in time where we go hunting for knowledge, gems, and classic works, and then modernize them together so they actually fit into our busy lives today. Now we're going to open Chapter 8, The Art of Business Correspondence, Writing to Persuade from the massive Cyclopedia of Commerce Accountancy Business Administration, Visa 01 of 10. Sounds a bit dry, right? Business correspondence in an age of email, Slack Messenger, iMessage, and a dozen instant messaging apps. But trust me, the principles born more than a century ago are still fully relevant, and in a world where almost everything happens through text, they're more important than ever. All of us have had to write an important email, a collaboration pitch, or a proposal to send to a partner. And sometimes just one off-key sentence or a tone that's slightly off can be enough to ruin a good opportunity. That's exactly why today we're going to explore the importance of written communication, from clarity and respect to persuasiveness, and how to turn those principles into real tools in your own emails and messages. Let's roll back the clock to a time when email didn't exist, and writing a letter was a full-blown art form. In the Cyclopedia, they devote an entire chapter to business correspondence. I picked out one sample letter, one that represents formality, clarity, and persuasion. Let's read and break it down together. Sample letter fully Americanized. SENNDEER RSADDDRESS Senders. Address Eastern Infrastructure Development Corporation, 123 Prosperity Avenue, Downtown District, Houston, TX 77002. DAT E-date. Desiduquinzidi Mentorfinenter Wanku. RECIPIENT AGORS ADD. RESS Recipients. Address Mr. Andrew Nolan, Chief Executive Officer, High Tech Engineering Solutions, LLC 45P6, Pioneer Road, New District, Houston, TX 77010. Dear Mr. Nolan, Reconfirmation Letter. Partnership Proposal for the Greenfield Eco Community Project. We sincerely appreciate your company for submitting the detailed partnership proposal for the Greenfield Eco Community Project on 10/10/1905. Our Board of Directors at Eastern Infrastructure Development Corporation has thoroughly reviewed your proposal and expressed strong interest in your innovative concepts and technical solutions. We are particularly impressed by your proven experience in delivering large-scale infrastructure projects, as well as your firm commitment to sustainable development standards, priorities we highly value in a strategic partner. To further discuss the partnership potential, we cordially invite you to our office on Thursday, 10/25/1905 at 10:00 a.m. During this meeting, we hope to dive deeper into the technical and financial aspects, as well as outline a clear roadmap for collaboration. Please confirm your attendance before 10/20/1905 so we can make the appropriate arrangements. Sincerely, CygN ATURE Signature. Elizabeth Tran, Chief Executive Officer, Eastern Infrastructure Development Corporation. I set the book down and look straight into the camera. You see that a letter from over 100 years ago, but its structure and spirit are still pure gold. The golden principles we can extract from this letter. Get straight to the point. The very first lines state the purpose. No rambling, no fluff. Polite and professional. The tone is formal and respectful, which creates a sense of reliability and trust. Accurate and concise. Every piece of information has a reason to be there. Dates, times, locations are all crystal clear. Clear call to action, CTA. The recipient knows exactly what they need to do next. Sounds simple, but in modern email, a lot of people still miss these basics. Bad email. Subject about that thing the other day. Hi, Alex. Remember that project we talked about last time? The one you wanted us to do, ASAP. Can you send over the docs you promised so I can start? Please send them soon or we'll miss the deadline. Thanks, Tyler. You see it, right? This email breaks every single one of those golden principles. Good email. Subject document request. CRM upgrade initiative. Hi, Alex. Hope you're having a productive day. To begin the CRM upgrade initiative as planned, we kindly request the documents you mentioned you would provide. Specifically, we're still awaiting business requirements analysis report, system architecture design, stakeholder register. Receiving these documents at your earliest convenience will help us kick off the project on schedule and avoid any delays. Thanks in advance for your support. Please let me know if you run into any issues. Best regards, Tyler. And the biggest lesson writing is still a human competitive advantage. In an age where AI can generate tons of text in seconds, human writing that is clear, thoughtful, and intentional is even more valuable. Good writing builds trust, credibility, and your personal brand. People who write well almost always have an edge at work and in business. The principles of letter writing from 1905 still hit just as hard in 2024 and 2025 because the core of human communication hasn't changed. Remember, when you write well, you persuade well. When you persuade well, you win. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And try applying these principles in your very next email. You'll feel the difference. See you in the next chapter. In the past chapters, we've taken a deep dive into the business world of more than a century ago through the Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration. We've talked about management accounting and even strategies that feel like they belong only in textbooks. But today, I want us to pause, take a deep breath, and dive into a dimension that I personally believe, no matter the era, it remains the bedrock of any business journey, business ethics. And that just so happens to be the title of Chapter 9 in this massive encyclopedia business ethics. The foundation of legacy. Sounds like a moral lecture, right? But trust me, this isn't some hollow sermon. This is a long-term business strategy, a key to building something money alone can never buy, a true legacy. Let me tell you two stories, two completely different paths that always come to mind whenever I read these old pages. On a crisp morning in a bustling East Coast port town in the early 1900s, picture someplace like Baltimore or New Haven. Around 1910, two young merchants set out to build their careers. The first was a man named Michael Reed. He started with a small shop selling fine fabrics and imported tea. Michael wasn't the smartest or wealthiest man in town, but he owned something far more valuable: credibility. Whenever Michael promised a delivery date, the goods arrived exactly on that day. Snowstorm, freezing rain, or a full-blown nor'easter, it didn't matter. Whenever he guaranteed the quality of a batch of tea, customers knew his word was solid. He never mixed inferior goods, never hiked prices unfairly when the market tightened. And when something went wrong unexpectedly, he always took the hit himself to keep his promise. People laughed at him, said he was too soft, too idealistic, too old school for such a competitive market. They said he'd never get rich doing business like that. But slowly, customers started seeking out Michael Reed. First the locals, then merchants from neighboring states, and eventually partners from as far as the Midwest. They all knew that if they did business with Michael, they wouldn't have to worry. His reputation spread like a melody that needed no instrument. Michael wasn't just selling goods, he was selling trust. 20 years later, his little shop had grown into a strong trading corporation with warehouses across Maryland and Pennsylvania. The name Reed Trading Company became a symbol of prosperity, fairness, and reliability. An empire built entirely on trust and integrity. On the other hand, Michael's fellow entrepreneur was a man named Thomas Blake. Thomas was smart, market-savvy, and brilliant at spotting opportunities. In the early years, he skyrocketed. He always bought cheap, sold high at any cost. He exaggerated product quality, made promises he couldn't keep, and did whatever it took to close a deal. When customers complained, he blamed them, dodged responsibility, or smoothed it over with empty words. Thomas believed that as long as the money kept flowing, nothing else mattered, and it worked for a while. His fortune grew rapidly, and people whispered that Michael Reed was old-fashioned. But then the rumors started. Customers felt deceived. Partners felt used. People who once admired Thomas began distancing themselves. No one wants to work with someone they can't trust. Deals collapsed. Contracts were canceled. Partners pulled out. Within 10 years, the Blake name, once associated with sharp instincts, became a warning sign for dishonesty. His shop closed amid the market's contempt. The fast money vanished just as quickly as it came, leaving only a ruined reputation, a hollow legacy. 2 stories, 2 outcomes. And you know what? This aligns perfectly with what the Cyclopedia wrote, despite being from an era long before email, Google, or the internet existed. The book emphasizes, reputation is worth more than gold or silver, for wealth can be lost. But reputation endures through the years. And another line I love, every transaction is a promise. And the worth of a merchant is measured by how well he keeps that promise. The book goes on to discuss fairness in all relationships. Partners, customers, employees, calling it the foundation of building a business that doesn't just grow, but earns respect. So why, even in the age of digital technology, where everything can be optimized by AI automation or big data, do these principles still hold their power? Simple business ethics isn't optional. It's a strategy for long-term sustainability. When you run your business with transparency and honesty, you build 1. Customer trust. Customers don't just buy a product, they buy peace of mind. And when trust exists, they return and they refer others. 2. Long-term partnerships. Companies want to collaborate with people they can rely on. Transparency builds strong alliances. 3. A healthy workplace, ethical companies attract talent, retain good employees, and create long-term engagement. 4. A brand value that can't be priced. Reputation is the greatest intangible asset. It's a shield during crises and a magnet for opportunities. On the flip side, deception may create short-term profit, but the price is a destroyed reputation, and collapse becomes inevitable. American business history is full of such examples, from Enron to Theranos. I know in the fast pace of modern business, pressure can push us toward difficult choices. Sometimes the ethical path looks slower, tougher. Sometimes fast money feels too tempting. But remember Michael and Thomas. Remember the timeless lessons from the Cyclopedia. Business ethics isn't a burden. It's an investment. An investment in trust, respect, and core values, things that pay dividends over time. It helps a business not only survive, but thrive across generations. It lets you sleep well at night, knowing everything you built was rooted in integrity. And when you look back on a lifetime, what remains isn't your bank balance or flashy titles. It's how you lived, how you did business, how you treated people. So let me ask you, what legacy do you want to leave? How do you want to be remembered in the business world? Think about it not just for yourself, but for the generations that follow. Because business ethics doesn't just shape your career, it shapes society. Thank you for spending your time reflecting on this meaningful topic with me. I truly believe that the principles of trust, honesty, and reputation from more than a century ago will continue to guide us today. Welcome back to our journey through the treasure trove of knowledge inside the first volume of Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration. If in the previous chapters we laid the groundwork for trade and finance, then today we're going to dive into a topic that, to me personally, feels both incredibly practical and genuinely cool in the context of modern business transportation and logistics. Or, as the book puts it, in a simple but spot-on way. Chapter 10. Transportation and Logistics, Connecting the World. Let's pause and imagine this for a second. Before high-speed internet, before long-haul flights that could cross continents in under half a day, how was the world connected? How did a sewing machine made in Chicago end up in the hands of a customer in Mumbai? How did coffee from Brazil end up on the shelf of a small cafe in New York or London? All of that happened thanks to those invisible bridges with incredible power that we now call transportation and logistics. Our cyclopedia, written in the early 20th century, was born right in the middle of a transportation boom. This was the golden age of steamships and railroads. You can picture it on this animated map. The blue lines represent huge steamships crossing the Atlantic, carrying not just goods, but also the dreams of people emigrating to the Promised Land. The Suez Canal, and later the Panama Canal, were seen as engineering miracles dramatically shortening routes between continents and making it faster, cheaper, and more feasible than ever to move goods around the world. And it wasn't just sea routes. Overland railroads were transforming everything at lightning speed. Transcontinental rail lines in the United States, like those red lines you see stretching across the map, not only moved goods from the East Coast to the West Coast, but also opened up new territories, fueled waves of immigration, drove local economies, and essentially stitched together an entire continent into a single unified market. The book spends many, many pages analyzing how crucial this flow of goods really was, treating it as the lifeblood that kept the entire commercial system alive. But of course, saying it is one thing. Doing it back then was anything but simple. Just imagine what it meant to move goods in that era. It came with massive risks and costs. No GPS, no radar, no detailed real-time weather forecasts like we have now. One unexpected storm could sink an entire ship and wipe out the fortunes of both merchants and investors in a single night. A mechanical failure in the middle of the ocean or a derailment on a mountain railroad could mean huge losses in both lives and property. That's not even counting issues like damage from humidity, insects, temperature swings, or shipping times so long that the product quality dropped significantly, especially for things like agricultural products, food, or anything perishable. Businesses at that time had to wrestle with a tough question. How do we reduce these risks and manage transportation costs in the most effective way possible? In the Cyclopedia, they list several strategies. One of the big ones is insurance. Sounds very Wall Street. But in reality, cargo insurance had already been around for a long time, with names like Lloyd's of London, specializing in insuring commercial voyages. Businesses also learned to spread risk. In other words, not put all their eggs in one basket. That meant not loading all of their critical cargo onto a single ship or a single train. They invested in stronger packaging, learned how to pack goods to withstand harsh conditions at sea and on rail, and built meticulous record-keeping systems to track shipments from warehouse to ship to port, all the way to the final recipient. These were the first building blocks of what we now call supply chain management. Fast forward to the 21st century, and at first glance, our world and the world of the Cyclopedia look galaxies apart. Cargo planes, mega container ships carrying tens of thousands of TEUs, sprawling road and rail networks that blanket entire continents, and most importantly, information technology have completely reshaped how we move goods. Take Amazon FBA Fulfillment by Amazon, for example. All you have to do is send your inventory into Amazon's system of warehouses, and they handle everything else: storage, packing, labeling, shipping, even returns. Or look at drop shipping, where the seller never even touches the inventory. They act purely as the bridge between supplier and customer. These models are prime examples of just how complex and sophisticated global logistics has become today, especially in cross-border e-commerce. But here's the fascinating part. Even though the technology now feels almost like magic, The core principles of transportation and logistics in the Cyclopedia are still completely relevant. At the end of the day, we're still trying to solve the same problem. How do we move goods from point A to point B in the most efficient, lowest risk, lowest cost way possible? The difference is that today, we're doing it on a global scale, and at a speed the authors of that book probably couldn't even imagine. From a single click on Amazon or Walmart, your package might travel thousands of miles. From a factory in Shenzhen through the port of Shanghai, onto a container ship crossing the Pacific into the port of Long Beach, then into an inland distribution center, onto a truck operated by a carrier, and finally to your doorstep, all in just a few days. That's a supply chain optimized down to the hour, down to the mile. But it also shows how fragile the system is. One disruption at a single link, a ship stuck in the Suez Canal, a major storm in the Gulf of Mexico, or a lockdown due to a pandemic, can trigger a domino effect and lead to global shortages. To me, that's both mind-blowing and a powerful reminder of how tightly connected our world really is. So what's the biggest lesson that Chapter 10, Transportation and Logistics, Connecting the World, gives us? I believe it's this: the world has always been, and likely will always be, connected through trade. From sailing ships carrying spices and silk along ancient trade routes, to steamships crossing oceans with steel and coal, to today's containers full of smartphones, laptops, and semiconductors, that flow of goods has never stopped. Transportation and logistics aren't just about moving physical objects. They're the flow of ideas, culture, and understanding. They make the world feel smaller, closer, and more interdependent. The Cyclopedia saw this very early on, and its lessons on managing and optimizing that flow are still incredibly relevant in today's age of globalization and digitalization. I hope this chapter has given you a deeper appreciation for the importance of transportation and logistics, both in the past and in the present. And as you can see, even the books that look old and dry at first glance can contain powerful, timeless business philosophies that help us better understand the complex world we live in. Thank you for watching and listening. Stay with me for the next chapter, where we'll continue to dig into another fascinating aspect of commerce and business management. Hey everyone, we've been digging deep into the treasure trove of wisdom inside this massive Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, right? Just the title alone tells you how broad it is. But there's one thing I always remind myself of: just reading or listening is not enough. Real wisdom lies in our ability to apply what we've learned to everyday life, to turn those old yellowed pages into concrete actions that actually create change. And that's exactly why today I want to share with you a 7-day action plan applying classic wisdom to modern life. This is not a to-do list. It's a mini journey, a challenge that I truly believe will help you feel the real value of principles that were distilled hundreds of years ago. Let's turn theory into practice, one step at a time, over the course of a week. Are you ready? Let's jump in. Days 1 and 2, review a contract or important agreement in your life. Is it really clear? You know this already in business, and even in your personal life. Contracts and written agreements are the foundation of almost every relationship. From simple agreements like renting an apartment or buying something big to more complex business contracts, clarity is everything. The Cyclopedia teaches us to be meticulous, to never let legal gray areas undermine all the effort we've put in. So take out a contract or agreement you've already signed, or one you're thinking about signing soon. It could be your employment contract, a lease agreement, a small business partnership agreement, or even the terms of service for an important online platform you heavily rely on. Use these first 2 days to read it slowly, carefully, line by line. Don't hesitate to read it 2 or 3 times. Ask yourself, are the terms clear and easy to understand? Is there any part that feels vague or confusing? Could any clause lead to misunderstandings or disputes down the line? For example, payment terms, deadlines, responsibilities of each party, or the conditions for termination. Are there any traps hidden inside complex legal language? I've personally come very close to getting into trouble just because I skimmed through the fine print. Once I started applying this read and fully understand rule, I felt a huge boost in confidence. I know what I'm committing to, and I can protect my own interests much better. Your goal for these 2 days is not just to read it, but to truly understand it. If something isn't clear, write down your questions and go find answers. Don't be afraid to ask the other party or seek advice from a professional if necessary. Clarity today can save you a lot of trouble and unnecessary costs in the future. That's classic business wisdom applied in a modern context. Days 3 and 4, track your personal or small business cash flow for 48 hours. Do you really know where your money goes? Money, always a hot topic. And managing it well is one of the core lessons the Cyclopedia emphasizes, even back in the days of handwritten ledgers. In our world of credit cards, online banking, and auto-pay subscriptions, tracking your cash flow has become easier, but also easier to ignore. For the next 48 hours, 2 days straight, I want you to do something very simple, but incredibly powerful. Write down every single amount of money that comes in or goes out. From your morning coffee lunch, Uber or Grab rides, streaming subscriptions, utility bills, all the way to a surprise payment or extra income that shows up. What can you use to track it? A small notebook, your Notes app, or a basic Excel or Google sheet. The tool doesn't matter. Consistency does. Categorize your expenses, food and drinks, transportation, entertainment bills, essentials, etc. Be brutally honest with yourself. Don't skip anything, no matter how small it seems. I used to think I knew where my money was going until I actually tracked it. That's when I discovered tiny leaks that quietly turned into a pretty serious number by the end of the month. That was my wake-up call. I finally saw where I was wasting money and how I could save more. Your goal for these 2 days is create the most detailed cash flow map you can. You don't have to make any big financial decisions yet. Just observe and record. Awareness is the first step to control. Once you know exactly where your money goes, you can start making smarter choices and build a stronger financial foundation, just like seasoned business people did a century ago. Day 5, write one important email using the principles clear, polite, and action-oriented. Email may look simple, but there's a surprising amount of art behind it, that we can trace back to the old principles of professional correspondence. In today's information-heavy world, being able to communicate clearly and effectively in writing is a massive advantage. A well-written email doesn't just help you get what you want, it also builds your professional image and strengthens your relationships. Pick one important email you need to send today or tomorrow. It could be a job application email, an email to a client or partner, an email pitching an idea to your boss or teammates, an email resolving an issue with a service provider. When you write it, focus on these 3 core principles. 1. Clarity. Subject line short, specific, and to the point. Never leave it blank or vague. Body, get straight to the point. Use simple, easy-to-understand sentences. Organize your message logically for example issue, context, solution, request. Avoid unnecessary jargon or vague wording. 2. Politeness. Greeting and closing, use language that's respectful and appropriate for the relationship. Tone, keep it positive and professional. Avoid writing in all caps, which feels like yelling or using too many exclamation points. Proofread, check spelling and grammar. This isn't just about being correct, it shows respect for the reader and respect for your own work. 3. Call to action, CTA. After laying everything out, make it crystal clear what you want them to do next. For example, please reply by 5 p.m. tomorrow. Could we schedule a meeting this Thursday? Please provide A, B, and C so we can move forward. A clear CTA speeds things up and prevents confusion about what's supposed to happen next. I've received emails where after reading I still had no idea what the sender wanted, and I've also sent those kinds of emails myself in the past. Once I started applying these principles, everything became smoother. Replies came faster, and collaboration became easier. Your goal for today is send one email that the recipient can read, understand, and act on as easily as possible. Turn email into a powerful tool not just for getting things done, but for building trust and professional relationships. Days 6 and 7. Choose one core ethical principle and write down how you'll live it out at work next week. Now we're getting to the heart of professionalism, the thing old school books, like the Cyclopedia, always emphasize business ethics and integrity. In today's hyper-competitive world, full of shortcuts and temptations, staying true to your ethical principles isn't just the right thing to do. It's the foundation of long-term success, personal reputation, and inner peace. Use these last 2 days of the week to really reflect. What do you truly believe in? What ethical principle feels most important to you in your work and life? It might be honesty, always telling the truth, no deception. Responsibility, keeping your word, owning your actions. Fairness, treating people fairly without favoritism. Transparency, sharing the necessary information, not hiding what matters. Respect, treating co-workers, clients, and partners with dignity. Once you've identified one core principle, write down specifically how you will express it in your work next week. Example: if you choose honesty, you might write, "Next week, I'll make sure every report I submit reflects the truth, even if the results aren't great. I won't exaggerate numbers or hide problems." Example: if you choose responsibility, you might write, "Next week, I'll proactively handle issues in my project instead of blaming others. I'll hit the deadlines I've committed to." There have been times when I've asked myself, should I do this, even though it gives me a short-term benefit? And I realized the peace of mind and long-term trust that come from honoring your own values are priceless. It helps you sleep better at night and builds deep trust with everyone around you. Your goal for these 2 days is not just to think about ethics, but to turn it into a concrete action plan. When you consciously choose and commit to one ethical principle, you don't just become better at your job. You become a better person and a more trustworthy member of your community and society. So we've just walked through this 7-day plan together. From carefully reading a contract, to tracking your money, to writing a professional email, to defining and living out a core ethical principle. See what's happening here. These principles that seem old or theoretical in a book, written over 100 years ago, actually become incredibly practical once we bring them into modern life. Each small action is a brick in the foundation of your confidence, clarity, effectiveness, and integrity in the way you work and live. Don't feel like you have to be perfect right away. This is a journey of learning and growth. What matters is that you've started, that you're willing to lean in and experiment. I'd really love to hear about your experience. Share in the comments. Which contract did you choose to review? What surprised you when you tracked your cash flow? How did your email turn out? Did it get the response you wanted? And which ethical principle resonated with you the most? Let's build a community of people who learn and grow together. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll see you in the next videos where we'll keep exploring timeless wisdom for our modern world awesome. Welcome to the final part of our journey through the surprisingly rich Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration, Volume 01. After flipping through these old pages and soaking in business thinking from over a century ago, I know a lot of you might be wondering, so in the end, what am I really supposed to take home and actually apply to my life and work right now? Don't worry. I've distilled, filtered, and boiled down the essence of this video and of that massive book into 3 core gems. These 3 timeless golden lessons aren't just generic advice. They're foundational principles that still hold their full power today, maybe even more so in our chaotic modern world. Let's walk through them together. Lesson 1. Clarity is power. Transparency always beats vagueness. Sounds obvious, right? But honestly, this is one of the most important and most often ignored lessons we can pull out of a book on commerce and accounting written in the early 1900s. From land sale contracts and construction material agreements to bookkeeping for a small corner store, the Cyclopedia keeps hammering one idea: the absolute necessity of clarity down to the tiniest detail. Even in our digital age, where people sometimes try to blur things with fancy jargon or microscopic fine print in online contracts, the value of clarity hasn't moved an inch. In fact, it's become incredibly valuable. Because vagueness, while it may look smart or strategic in the short term, almost always leads to misunderstandings, disputes, and eventually a collapse of trust, which we'll talk more about in Lesson 2. Think about your own work in any role. A clear, concrete, easy-to-follow instruction email can save your teammate hours of guessing, redoing, and frustration. A transparent employment contract without sneaky hidden clauses builds trust between employee and employer. An honest, readable financial report that doesn't hide any numbers attracts investors and keeps customers' confidence. Even in everyday conversations with family and friends, clear communication about what you want and how you feel makes relationships healthier and more stable. Clarity isn't just a nice trait, it's a superpower. It helps you reduce risk, build credibility, and create a healthier environment for working, doing business, and living. This book reminds us, if you want to survive and grow long-term, always choose the path of transparency. No matter how complicated things get, find a way to simplify them and make them as clear as possible. That is the strongest foundation you can build on. Lesson 2. Trust is your greatest capital. Reputation and credibility are irreplaceable assets. This is probably the lesson that echoes the loudest from those old pages for me. And it's even more true in the digital era. The Cyclopedia doesn't talk about personal brand or 5-star ratings the way we would today, but it constantly circles back to the importance of honor promises kept and reliability in every business transaction. Merchants, accountants, and business managers from a century ago understood something crucial in a world where information traveled slowly. A person's word and signature were worth more than almost any physical asset. A person who kept their promises and a business that dealt honestly would always gain loyal customers, trusted partners, and a much better chance of surviving tough times. Now look at our world today. Technology shifts at lightning speed. Algorithms change every quarter. Trends go viral and die out in a weekend. So what do you actually own that can't be copied, paid for, or made obsolete? It's your credibility, your reputation, the trust people have in you. A company might have cutting-edge technology, but if it violates customer privacy, will it really keep its market share? An influencer might have millions of followers, but if they promote junk products or spread misinformation, will their influence last? A brilliant leader might be full of ideas, but if they constantly break promises to their team, will anyone still feel inspired? Trust isn't a quick marketing tactic. It's a long-term strategy. It's not something you brag about. It's something you prove day in, day out, through your actions and your consistency. You build it brick by brick through honesty, follow through, care, and ownership. And once it's gone, getting it back is incredibly hard, sometimes impossible. So treat trust like the most precious currency in your wallet. Every time you keep a promise, you're making a deposit. Every time you break one, you're making a withdrawal. Make sure that account stays full. Because no matter how advanced technology becomes, human relationships, and every deal at its core is still anchored in trust. Lesson 3. The fundamental principle never changes. Every business runs on value exchange and solving human problems. This is the most philosophical lesson, but also the most central one we can pull from this old-fashioned book. Whether it's a small grocery store selling rice and salt, a shipbuilding company, or a multi-million-dollar tech startup, the essence of business never actually changes. The Cyclopedia makes it clear that even hundreds of years ago, business was always about 1. Exchanging value. You create or provide something that has real value to someone else. 2. Solving problems. Your product or service addresses a need, a pain point, or a desire that people genuinely have. Think about it. When you needed a horse-drawn carriage to travel from one town to another, someone offered transportation. The problem movement. The value, speed, and convenience. When you need a smartphone to stay connected, someone offers a tech device. The problem: communication and access to information. The value: connection and knowledge at your fingertips. No matter how wild the tools, channels, and scale become, from handing over cash at a village market to tapping your phone on a global e-commerce app, the core of every transaction still revolves around people and their needs. This lesson is crucial for anyone who's in business or wants to start one. Don't get so obsessed with the newest tech, the coolest business model, or the latest trend that you forget the core questions. What problem are you solving, and for whom? What real value are you providing that's meaningfully better or more effective than what already exists? If you can answer those two questions clearly and convincingly, then no matter how the market shifts or technology evolves, your business will have a solid foundation to stand on. Don't let shiny distractions blur the deeper truth of what business really is. Come back to the basics: serving people, delivering value, and solving real problems. That's a compass that never goes out of date. And those are the three golden lessons, the three precious gems I believe we can unearth from a book that looks like it belongs to another era. 1. Clarity is power. Always choose transparency. Simplify and make things clear. 2. Trust is your greatest capital. Build and protect your reputation. Trust is priceless. 3. The core principle never changes. Everything is built on value exchange and solving human problems. I truly hope these messages don't just sit on your screen for a few minutes and fade away, but actually sink into your mind and your heart and push you to apply them in your daily life. Take these 3 seeds with you, plant them, take care of them, and I believe over time you'll harvest results that are solid, sustainable, and deeply meaningful. Fantastic! We've reached the final pages of Volume 1 of the Cyclopedia of Commerce, Accountancy, Business Administration. A journey not just of knowledge, but of mindset, of seeing how the timeless thinking of the great minds of the early 20th century helped shape the business world we live in today. These aren't dry, dusty lessons. They're the foundation on which we people living in the 21st century can continue writing our own story in the world of business. Now that you've absorbed the ideas, the principles, and the golden rules of this first volume, what stays with you the most? Maybe it's a piece of wisdom about managing cash flow. Maybe it's a definition of commerce that made you stop and think. Or maybe it's a philosophy of accounting that, despite sounding old-fashioned, feels surprisingly relevant today. Which principle surprised you the most? Which idea made you pause and go, wow? So this is where it all began. Did anything in volume? I completely changed the way you look at business. Don't hold back. Be the first to share your thoughts, takeaways, and biggest lessons in the comments section below this video. I genuinely can't wait to read what stood out to you, what made you rethink something, what sparked a deeper curiosity, what pushed you to start exploring further. Because your comments aren't just personal opinions. Each one is a meaningful puzzle piece that helps us build a richer, more complete picture of what we've uncovered together. We can learn from each other's perspectives. We can dissect ideas together and uncover new insights from pages that might have been silent for 100 years. Let's turn the comments into a lively forum, a place where people who love business wisdom can connect and exchange ideas. But this is only the beginning, right? One book with hundreds of pages is just the first brick in a massive 10-volume encyclopedia. We still have 9 more volumes waiting to be explored, 9 volumes promising even broader horizons, deeper insights, and more powerful lessons about commerce, accounting, and business administration than you may have ever imagined. Do you want to continue this journey with me? Are you curious about what the next volumes will reveal about how business evolved and why? If you don't want to miss any part of our journey through the remaining 9 volumes, and if you want to be the very first to discover the next hidden gems from the past, make sure you hit subscribe and turn on the little notification bell. This isn't just about following a YouTube channel. It's about choosing to become a part of a community, people who hunger for knowledge, who want to understand the origins of modern prosperity, who want to learn from the past to build a smarter future. Together, we're going to dive even deeper into each topic, analyze more, learn more, and grow more. Become an essential part of this community, a place where we decode history to build tomorrow. And if you find these insights helpful, if you believe they can change the way someone sees business, or if you just want to share a fresh perspective with someone around you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with a friend, a colleague, or anyone you think will love content like this. Especially send it to anyone dreaming of starting a business, students searching for direction in the world of commerce, young entrepreneurs still trying to find their footing, seasoned business owners who want to revisit the fundamentals that may have been forgotten. Because sometimes an idea from 100 years ago is exactly the key someone needs to unlock a problem today. Let's spread this knowledge. Let's spark curiosity. Let's plant seeds of innovation. A single idea planted today can grow into a successful company tomorrow. And you can be part of that ripple effect. And to make your learning journey even easier, and to help you retain the core ideas without having to re-watch everything, I've prepared a special gift just for you. A downloadable PDF summarizing the most important principles and lessons from Volume 1. It's carefully crafted, distilled to the essentials, and designed for quick review, highlighting printing or saving as your own pocket guide to timeless business wisdom. You can download it for free. Just click the link in the video description. Think of it as a small thank you for being here and for spending your valuable time flipping through the pages of history with me. We're not just readers. We're people bringing the wisdom of the past back to life so it can help shape the future. I truly believe that with all of us together, this journey will become more than a series of videos. It will become an endless source of inspiration, a growing treasure chest of knowledge. Let's build a community of lifelong learners where ideas are shared, curiosity is encouraged, and each of us gets the chance to learn from one another, from the past for the future. Thank you for being here, for being part of this story. I deeply appreciate your companionship on this journey. Share, comment, subscribe, and get ready for the incredible discoveries ahead. I'll see you in the next volume where we'll open new doors of knowledge together. Take care and see you soon.